right, welcome to day 4 of the 13 days of Halloween. Today we will be doing this, I happen to think he's creepily adorable, but Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Excuse me. I sent the traceable or posted the traceable and the supply list, but I did want to talk a little bit about this because you'll see in some of my suggested supply lists where we'll need a yellow, I say cadmium or cad-free yellow or cadmium or cad-free red. I wanted to explain that a little bit. So here we have some cadmium-free yellow. Cadmium is technically toxic. So a lot of brands, this is the one I use, Liquitex Professional, have come out with an alternative called cadmium free. I guess if you're doing a lot of testing or whatever and you're comparing side by side, there might be a very slight difference in the color, but I haven't really noticed anything. The longevity seems to be fine. So because I have small children, I tend to go with the cadmium free. It's also a little bit cheaper than the full-on cadmium, quote-unquote toxic paint. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit. So I wanted to have a little fun with Oogie Boogie because he himself is sort of bland in color, that kind of burlappy brown color. So our background is going to be pretty bright. I wanted to do a nice bright green. And if you're familiar with the movie at all, you'll recall that he even glows bright green during the point where he has the dice and all that. So I thought it was a little nod to that. So I'm going to set this aside and we'll start with our background. So I had mentioned you needing a flat or wash brush. So we're going to start doing the background here, okay? We're going to take our phthalo green, or if you have a bright green or primary green, well, it's, I guess, technically not primary, but just a bright green or emerald green or something like that, and mix a little bit of your cad yellow, primary yellow, whatever yellow color you have. Okay. And we're just going to start painting around the edges. It doesn't have to be perfect because you know, when you look at in the movie, everything looks dirty and dingy and gross where Oogie Boogie lives. So I'm not going to worry too much about covering every little detail here. And you'll notice I'm not painting the center yet. I'm just going around the edges. We're going to do a little bit of a fade here, similar to when we did our moon for Jack and Sally, where the center is going to be a different color. But with this, instead of working from the center out, we're working from the outside in. And as typical, I didn't mix enough. So here we go. Not too worried about mixing the exact color because, like I said, I'm not striving for perfection here. Okay, and as we get more into the center, we're going to start blending in towards the center here. I'm going to add a bit more yellow, okay? What this is going to do is really draw attention to the center there, while also allowing Mr. Oogie Boogie to be the center of attention, which we all know he wants. You can see I'm being kind of rough with my brush. Most wash brushes are pretty resilient, so you don't have to worry too much about whether or not you're pushing hard on the brush. If you have a more fragile brush, you can do some more smooth strokes. I'm just going to use a little bit of my Glazing Medium just to thin this out a little bit. These canvas sheets are pretty rough, and sometimes the paint has a hard time dragging on them. It's totally optional to add that. You know, use the Glazing Medium or water in there to smooth it out or thin it out. Personal preference. You'll see in some places I don't really want a hard line where the color transitions, so I've gone back over it a little bit just to blend a bit more. Again, that's just personal preference. If you like the hard lines for the transition, by all means, let it be. Okay. I'm not worried too much about the very center here, because Oogie Boogie is going to be covering the whole center. So it doesn't matter if it's a little bit more green than the surrounding. Alright, now I'm just going to come and smooth out any random brush strokes I see or any hard lines. Fill in where I might have left some white spots in the canvas. There we go. And now we need to let this dry. So I am going to use my heat gun. And since I did, actually I see some more white spots here. Since I did mention the use of a heat gun, I'm going to show it on camera, but I'm going to mute it and speed it up so that you don't have to listen to that drone on and be deafened. Okay. So as you can see, I was constantly moving it around and not holding it in one place for very long because I did not want to chance it burning my paint or causing it to bubble up. If you use a hairdryer, you can use the cool setting, and that will really probably be your best option. I also wanted to point out, I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but these canvas sheets or any bargain or bulk, and I was able to just pick it off. Anyway, bulk canvases that you can get at a discount, like a dollar store or even at your local craft store, where they come in multiples. They really are, they're inexpensive for a reason. They are not the best quality, so there will be imperfections, but when you're just playing around, honestly, it is completely fine to use. I actually use these sheets sometimes for some of my professional paintings, but I always frame them because they are so flimsy. But you know, just beware that if you do decide you want to paint a lot, there are more expensive options that are better quality, so just keep that in mind. But I saw a little blip on mine that I was able to just kind of pick off on mine. So The wording on this one, as with anything else in these paintings, is completely optional. If you are going to do the wording, just keep note when you're drawing your Oogie Boogie here or using it as a traceable, you'll want to leave a little bit of a gap at the top for the letters. I did hand letter this, and I will be hand lettering it on the actual canvas. If you're not comfortable with that, you can either use my traceable if you like the way this looks, and use the whole chalk method, or you can even use a word processor like Microsoft Word or Google Documents or whatever you happen to use, and type it up in whatever font you want, and then use that as a traceable for the text. Or just leave the text off, whatever you feel like. So because a lot of my canvas is on the lighter spectrum, I'm going to be using a black charcoal. I prefer the white because it covers up better, but because the background is light and I have the intense light over my canvas, you will have a hard time seeing me draw with the white pencil, much like if you did watch the Jack and Sally video, the first one, over the moon. It was very hard to see what I drew, so I ended up going over it during a break in filming with the black charcoal. Excuse me. So I'm giving myself a couple inches here to do my lettering, and I'm just gonna start you're gonna want him kind of centered on your canvas or surface, whatever surface. So I'm gonna start just with the top here, and I'm just doing a very large curved line. Okay, and I'm going to come down here, and where the end of it is, I'm just going to do like a curved V, and then have that come down almost into like a backward C. And you'll want the two ends to be almost even. So now we're going to start with the eyes, and he's really frowny. A lot like the sorting hat. We're going to do a curve and then come up with a hook and then have it come down and curve, okay? And then on this side, we're going to do the same thing, just not quite as exaggerated. And oops, let me make that like that. Okay. Now under here, we're just going to do a little bit of a curved line. And then we're going to do like a C. Okay. And on the other side, we're going to do a backward C. And then we're going to connect those two with a curved line. Okay. We're going to come in a little bit inside and just do a very wide, wonky looking V. Okay. Then we're going to come in where that V starts over here and do another C. And then where the V ends over here, we're going to just do a little curved line. And we're going to come around the bottom of that V. Now to finish the eyes, we're going to kind of mimic this curved line a little and do a little, you know, you can make the sound effect like I just did if you want. Okay. And then we're going to come in and connect that with a U at the bottom. And we're going to do the similar thing on this side. And then again with a U. Okay. All right. So now right about where the mouth is, we're going to do a curved line coming down. And I like to compare his arms to tentacles. So we're just going to kind of do like a little bit of a wavy thing and then bring it in a little bit and close the tentacle. So with a narrow U or a curved V, or however you want to say it. And then we're just going to come up. This is kind of like the palm of what would be his hand. And then bring it to about there. Then we're going to come right about here. So sort of kind of halfway in between the mouth and the tentacle. And we're going to start and make his body. So you start with a curved line and have it swoop out. And then we're just going to do wiggly lines all the way down to the bottom. Okay? And he has a little bit of an armpit here. So I just draw a little bit for that. Excuse me. For his next arm, we're starting again, this time kind of where this cheek or the backwards C is. And we're going to come down like this. And then his, we're going to go up. Whoops. My pencil's acting up. Sharpen it a little bit. Let's see if that helps. Okay. So we're going to come up and curve. And then bring a curved line like that. Oop, mine's going to go off the canvas, but that's okay. So we're going to go up and then almost like his little fingers there, okay? So we're coming up and curve, and then we're going to go up and loop around, okay? And then just come down. And now we're going to be forming like his elbow. Sometimes using the dark chalk, or excuse me, charcoal on paint is a little hard because it tends to pick up some of the paint on the tip. And then it has a hard time drawing. Okay. So I made this arm a little narrower, skinnier to fit on the canvas, but I broke my charcoal. Okay, let's sharpen again. All right. Okay. And we're going to come out a little bit with a curve and come down and make his elbow. Okay. And this actually comes down, curves a little, and you'll have like where the fold of the arm is. All right. And now, just under the elbow, we're going to do the same thing and have his body come down. Okay? And then you can definitely use a Sharpie for this. You don't have to. I just use the charcoal because it's easier to cover up, and I plan to line in black paint, but if you want to line in Sharpie, please feel free to do that. And I'm just doing some little wrinkles in the fabric here and there, like around his neck. He always seems to have wrinkles in his neck, and then a big little curve for his belly. So I'm going to actually widen this part over here a bit more, and that will get covered up by the paint, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so his stitches are pretty easy. There's nothing too specific about them. Just anywhere you think there would be a seam, just do some stitches. Okay. And no rhyme or reason to how the stitches are done on there. The one thing to note with the arms is how if he's bending his arm, you're going to see the connection of the, I guess connection, or how, so if the stitches are up here, you would imagine it wrapping around the arm like this. I guess that's the best way to describe it to you. Okay, one more sharpen, and then I think we'll be okay. All right, for the seam on the side here, I'm going to try to follow down here best I can. And again, just not, these stitches can be random, any direction, X, Y, whatever you want. Okay. You can keep them all the same direction. You can have them going back and forth. And yes, the tip did just fall out, so I'm just using it with my fingers. And then for his lips, I just like to curve them a little bit because his lips do kind of curve in some. All right, now remember, some of this will get covered up, much like with the other drawings, and that is okay. And we will just redo it with the paint, but this is just to lay it out for you so that you have an idea of what it's going to look like. So I'm going to start with the darkest. So his eyes and inside his mouth are black. So I'm going to start with that. Let's see. I think I'm going to go with a small round brush right now. And if you remember the trick where you flatten out your brush, I'm thinning out my paint because this canvas sheet looks like it's pretty textured today. So I need to thin out my paint for it to get in all those little grooves. It will mean needing, you know, another coat, but we typically need to do that anyway, so I'm not worried about it. I have always liked Oogie Boogie. I used to sing the song when I was a kid. He's just so fascinating to me, and they did such a good job with the animation of him, and it's just a really cool character. All right, so the mouth is done. So now I'm going to come in and do the eyes. And I think I'm going to start with a thinner brush because there's some little tight spaces in there. Use whatever brush you can. And again, I'm not getting too obsessive with staying in the lines because we'll be going over it. But you get the idea. Okay. So Oogie Boogie is kind of like this burlappy brown color. So in order to achieve that, I'm going to use two colors. I'm going to use the burnt umber and I'm going to use the white. So burnt umber or dark brown and white. And I'm mix using a little bit bigger brush so I can grab more. So the white is pretty intense, and it will cut the brown pretty intensely, or pretty deeply, I should say. So I'm going to actually mix two different colors. I'm going to mix a slightly darker one like this, and we'll use that for like the shaded areas, like on the sides where he would be curving behind. And then I'm going to do a lighter one for the other areas. So you can see, looking at them, one is more a beige color. So this one that I'm mixing now is more a beige color, and I'd consider that one more a light brown or maybe a tan color. Okay, and then we're just gonna come in and just start painting. So I'm going just down with the tan color first. Or beige, I'm sorry, not tan. And then we'll come in and add the shadows and stuff with the darker color later. And feel free to use a bigger brush. I actually think I'm going to use a bigger brush right now. This is a round brush. You can use a flat brush. I have what's called a filbert here. It's kind of worn because I've been using it a lot. It's basically a flat brush, but when the bristles are, you can see it's kind of curved at the top. Those are really good for filling in spaces and doing different shapes. I really love those, and I may actually use that some for this painting, but right now I'm sticking with the round. So you can see I covered up my stitches. That's okay. We did the same thing with Sally. You know, those are just a guideline for our eyes. It's like muscle memory, almost. Like, you know, they say it's like riding a bike. You know, you will kind of remember where they are as you paint, and you don't have to worry about it. So I'm actually going to switch to, for his belly, I'm going to switch to a wide flat brush here, just for the sake of time. You do not have to do that. Maybe thin this out a little bit, cover more area. So where the arm is, so anywhere there's a large, a distinct change, like where the wrinkles are, I'm not too worried about, because those I can kind of guesstimate. But wherever like the arms connect together, or where the face is, I am going to be a little careful, just kind of with the guideline there. And I may leave a small gap just to remind myself of where that is. The lips, I'm going to just go ahead and do the darker color in just a minute. We can add a highlight with the lighter color if we need to. Just so I don't lose them, because that's kind of important. Okay, so I'm going to use the darker color here remember what I said about the water droplets. You probably witnessed several times on the Jack and Sally painting. I am horrible with getting all the paint, all the water off my brush. So, I get water droplets falling down into my painting, and you really don't want that. So try to be careful of that. You can ruin a painting really fast with that. Good thing it's not watercolors, right? There we go. So like I said, just going in and doing the lips with this dark color to make sure they keep their space, and then we'll resume with the light color. Okay. So see, I'm leaving the tiniest little gap there. To remind me that that's where I've got that line. I have to stop myself from laughing because my husband pointed out to me, I think it was maybe 2 years ago or something, when I paint and I concentrate, I stick out my tongue. So it's kind of a good thing these camera shots are overhead, so you don't actually see me sticking out my tongue when I'm focusing here. Okay, let me mix a little bit more. So again, use whatever brush you are comfortable using to do this. I may switch back to a smaller brush here in a minute just to, because I'm going to have some tight spaces here. In fact, I will. Get the paint off and let's switch to one of my rounds. So because we have a lot of titanium white in this mixed color, you will notice it is pretty opaque on the canvas. So if you are happy with it with just one coat, that is perfectly fine. And in fact, for most of this, I'm probably gonna leave it with just one coat. If we were doing a lot of detail work, I'd do, thinner coats of paint and do several layers. But since I'm not, this is still, we're still kind of doing cartoony stuff, I am not going to worry too much about that. You'll hear some artists talk about underpaintings and all this sort of stuff, and I'll be honest, I sometimes do them, sometimes don't. It all depends on what I'm working on at the time. Okay, so if you go to art school, you learn all about underpaintings and different types of underpaintings and different ways and colors and all sorts of stuff. So, but it's not necessary with these quick tutorials. These are just fun little tutorials. You'll see I'm not your sort of traditional artist. I kind of do my own thing. Makes it more fun for me and less stress inducing, but sometimes I make the mistake of painting from right to left instead of left to right. If I'm using my right hand, I can get myself in trouble, so I'm being extra careful right now. So if you are right-handed, try your best to, excuse me, paint from left to right. As I said in my other video, don't pull a Kelly. I don't know if it's the lighting or if it's because of the green background, but this color looks almost pink and I'm kind of liking it. And yes, I'm singing the song in my head as I paint this. The Boogeyman song. Or Oogie Boogie's. I think it's called Oogie Boogie's Anthem. Okay. So we're really just coming in and filling everything in with this beigey color right now. And you can see I went a little bit outside the line, not worried about it. Remember, we're not striving for perfection, we're just trying to have fun here. This is a way to let loose and relax. I believe that art should be kind of therapeutic. It should not stress you out. There are people in my classes and that are just so particular about making it perfect, and I try to break them of that because you do not have to be perfect. This is just to be fun and make something fun. And you see, we'll go back through and fix, you know, any lines that we covered up from painting. Piece of the lacquer from my brush broke off and landed in my paint. One of the things that happens is if you beat up your brushes like I do, the lacquer coating can start to peel off, no matter how well you take care of your brushes. He looks kind of funny right now. Looks, I don't know what it reminds me of. There's something it reminds me of. When I was drawing him for the traceable, I was thinking he reminds me a lot of a squid with the pointy head and then these almost tentacle-like arms. Okay, so now if you recall the sorting hat, we're going to come in and do some shading in the areas that would be like where the underarm and stuff, like right about where like his arm sits. And I'm not going to worry too much about blending, but you can kind of blend it back and forth, or if you're using the glazing medium or water, you can just kind of dip your brush in it and see it kind of blends out that little edge there. Okay. maybe a tiny bit in here where that line is. You don't have to have anything too intense, just a little bit to kind of show where the creases are. So right here, I'm kind of going down the side. And what I like to do when I'm blending my paint is to kind of paint in every which direction, because if you think about it, he is round, right? He's a bag. So if you're coming, you know, a bag is not flat. So it'll kind of round out at the edges there. So if you just paint up and down, it doesn't give you really the illusion that he's curved, right? It just looks like you slapped some paint there. So, but by going up and down and pulling in like this, it's showing you that more like 3D-ish look to it. And I'm coming in with some of the lighter color too, so that I don't go too overboard with my shadows here. I don't want to, oops. So see, if you just come in and just alternate with the two, it will kind of blend a bit. Okay, so I'm going to come down and then pull in some. Down and pull in. And again, this does not have to be perfect. We are not striving for perfection here. Well, I'm not. If you are, that's fine too. And then just smooth it out. So that's kind of how you get those, whoops, those kind of shadowy, the shadowy look. So it looks like he's turning, or curved, I should say. So come down. And then come with the lighter color and just kind of pull a bit and blend. I covered up too much, so I'm going to come in, do more. There we go. So now we've got some nice shading in here, showing good old Mr. Oogie Boogie. I'm lightening this up because it's got a little too dark there somehow. And again, you know, he's not perfect. Burlap is certainly not perfect. So don't go bonkers trying to make this perfect. Okay, so now, let's see, we'll do a little bit on the underside of his head, much like with the hat, the sorting hat. Remember, we did the sorting hat. We kind of shaded on the bottom side. Okay, add a little bit of the lighter, and we're gonna blend that. We just don't want a harsh line there, and just keep blending it out as we go. There we go. Okay. So now where his eyes are, if you remember, they were kind of he had those little scowls on his eyes. So we're going to do a little bit of a shade there, blend it. Okay, take a little bit of the white. I think I stuck, yep, stuck my arm in paint. Just blending so it's not too harsh. There we go. All right. So I think I'm going to kind of mix a little bit between the two and kind of come up from the mouth there to make it kind of look like his lips really come out from you know, they curve, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Language is not my friend today, apparently. So come in, make them darker there on the very edge. Okay, and then lighten it. Let it lighten coming up. You can do some strokes going down. I know this all looks really funny. This is that ugly phase we've talked about. Okay, so just trying to get these sections so it shows some sort of progression there. Just touching up anything I might need to touch up there. Okay, and now I'm going to come across here and just with a bit of that glazing liquid, or you can use water, and just try to smooth that out as much as I can. Replace some of the dark I missed, I took away. So sometimes with acrylics, you just have to keep kind of fiddling with it until you get it exactly how you want it. And just come back and forth. Sometimes I have to kind of leave a painting for a few days, you know, kind of take my eyes off it for a bit, and then come back and look at it again later. I'm gonna put a touch of the dark right on the edge so that we have those shadowy type of marks. And remember, paint in every which direction to give that more 3D-ish look to it. Okay, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. And then come in with the light. And blend. All right. I'm just going to do a little bit of that up here. Bring it towards the center. And then come in with the light. Maybe a little bit of the glaze or water. And just blend. I lost a little bit of my dark there. And just blend in. You want to put a bit of a highlight in the center there with the lightest color if you've lost any of it. There we go. Now I'm going to start with the shading on the outside of the arms. So again, just a little bit of dark. Come in with the lighter. And just blend it together. I could put too much of the I think I got into my green before with my base color, but that's okay. I'm not going to try to worry about it right now. Right. So we're essentially doing the same thing, just coming in, shading a bit. And I still have that gap because I'm going to do the outlines. but you get the idea. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, having a little trouble talking while doing this because I'm a bit focused. Bit of a highlight in the middle because I had a little tiny bit of streakiness, but you see I'm just running my brush back and forth and just blending those colors to give me that look of a shadow. I'm fixing a little blip I did. I think I was trying to make it look like a crease in the palm, but it almost made it look like he was giving the finger, so I don't want to do that. Right, so playing around with that, I think I got too harsh of a line there, so I'm going back over this. I don't want any harsh lines. Unless there's super intense light, there's never really a dark, strict line where a shadow starts, especially when you're trying to make something look sort of kind of 3D-ish. All right. Paint every direction. If you lose your lightness in the middle, you can always add more. Making sure you're covering everything pretty well. And now I am going to come in with a bit more of the light color because I lost a bunch of it on this one. And don't think we're done highlighting yet and shadowing because we still have the little wrinkles to add in here, which will require a smidge of highlights and shadows as well. All right, I'm just gonna come through and just touch up his lip a bit. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take my liner, and for right now, I'm just going to use thinned out dark brown, burnt umber, whatever you have, and I'm just going to kind of redraw those like wrinkles. We'll go back over them in black later, but for right now I just want placement so I know where my shadows are going to go. I already did the shadow for that, so I don't need to do that for the eye up there. And then his belly there. I think I need to make that a bit wider. See, I'm not worried about the streakiness or anything there because lost the brush there. Okay. Yeah, I'm not worried too much about the streakiness there because we're gonna pretty much cover it. So I'm using the darker brown again, and I'm just coming in pretty much where the line was there, and then coming in with the lighter one just like before, and just coming in different directions and really smoothing it out. Back and forth, up and down. Bigger brush here. And where he's got that, you can make this kind of like a little highlight, adding a bit more white than you would have before if you want. Make it really stand out because it's his belly there. You don't have to do that. Up to you. I'm just giving you some ideas here. And just smoothing that out. And just adding water or glazing medium. Oop, my son is awake. Hold on. Okay. I'm just covering up some spots that I noticed down here. And not too worried because, like I said, Oogie Boogie is burlap and therefore kind of messy. Alright, so you can see we pretty much covered up that that brown. We have just enough to make the mark for it. Okay, so now we're just going to come in and just do a little bit of shadowing. Just a tiny bit. I'm not worried about it too much. Just to kind of accentuate these, or to mark where these little wrinkles are. Come in with the lighter color, kind of blend it out Doesn't have to be perfect, just making these little markings. Wherever you feel it's necessary. Kind of fixing, there's some of his I still don't have much lightness in there, so I'm just kind of fixing that a bit. Okay. Maybe a tiny little bit right here where this wrinkle is. Blend it out some. But remember the shading on the underarm there. All right. All right. I think we're ready to do a second coat on that black, just to fill it in a little bit more, get any gaps, and then do our line work. Our outlines. All right. So if you remember from the Jack and Sally video, or if you didn't get to watch the Jack and Sally video, or you don't remember if I had it in the sorting hat, but I used, excuse me, this liner brush, and I explained that anytime you use your liner brush, you really want the color to be the consistency of ink. So you're going to want to really use water or the glazing liquid to do your outlines. Now I'm going to attempt to be smart this time and actually go from left to right here, so that I don't destroy my work or get paint all over me. So if you don't want the outline to be so stark, like I'm doing it in black, you can definitely do it in the dark brown. It'll have a more, I don't want to say natural feel, but for lack of a better word, a more natural feel to it. But I really like the pop of that black. What I like about the liner brushes is they curve very well with very little effort. If you don't have one, just use a round brush or a Sharpie or anything have on hand. Now, if you're having trouble remembering where the lines were, you can definitely reference the traceable. The outline is just kind of making it look a bit more realish. To me, it's making it all come together. Okay. And I kind of messed up the edge of my eye a bit, so I'm going to come back around and fix it a bit. Alright. Same thing on this side. So just very carefully line around your piece. So I know that this is not, excuse me, the Jack and Sally painting, but since I didn't mention it before, and this is from the same movie, did you know that there is a Jack Skellington, or just Jack, that dates all the way back to the 1980s from a Tim Burton Disney film, Return to Oz. And he is tall and skinny and has a pumpkin head. So if you remember Jack in the beginning of Nightmare Before Christmas, where he comes out and he has the big pumpkin head, the guy in Return to Oz named Jack looks eerily similar to that. Alright, no big deal. Clean brush, clean water. And a rag. And there we go. Took off some of my green, but that's okay. As I said before, I'm not too worried about perfection with this one. because everything looks kind of worn and tattered and old and dingy and in Oogie Boogie's home. Okay. This makes me happy. He is looking so cute. All right. Do a little line for the belly. And you can see where I did too much of the light color out of the lines, I guess you could say. So I may attempt to fix that because that will drive me crazy. Or I may just deal with it. Who knows? There we go. You can see I keep thinning it out as I have to add more black to the mix to get the right color. All right, let me fix this wrinkle here. All right, so he's looking pretty good. Now we just need to do the stitches. Okay. So again, if you don't remember quite where they were, just reference your traceable. You don't have to be exact. And if you forget one, much like I forgot my Sally mouth stitches, you can always go in later. Okay, let me do his lips. Remember, I did say I was going to try to curve them a little bit because his mouth does curve. But you don't have to be that particular. Woohoo! We've got a Oogie Boogie here. I must have had black on my hand. I am a mess. But that's okay. All right. Okay. Now I've got the last set. Oh, and I forgot his little wrinkles over here. All right. So now all his stitches are done. We have a pretty good representation of Oogie Boogie right now. If you do not want to do the lettering, you can just stop now. If you are going to do the lettering, then you should let your painting dry very well before you continue. So I'm going to take a small break to use my heat gun and really make sure that this guy is dry before I continue. Okay, so now my painting is dry. I've cleaned up a few mess ups that I made when trying to touch it to see if it was dry, and so now I'm going to do the lettering. So what you're gonna do, I'm actually gonna move this so I can have easier access to this. So you want to make sure it's kind of centered on your canvas. So I'm just gonna do some some chalk lines. I can line this up here and see about where it'll end up being. Now, just for the sake of this and worrying about it lining up and all that, you can just draw it out with your chalk first, and I am not worrying about being perfectly straight because this is supposed to be kind of creepy lettering. Ay, ay, ay. More paint on here. Right. And you can do, like I said, if you don't want a hand letter, you can use, you know, the traceable. You can use something from your computer, you know, anything in a word processor that you like, any font. I would, if it were me, do some sort of creepy sort of lettering, and, you know, stick with that kind of creepy Halloween vibe. But if there is a really interesting, you know, swirly font that you just have to have, by all means, use what you like. And the only reason why, oh my goodness, why I am doing this in chalk is because I don't want to mess up with the paint. Lettering can be a little nerve-wracking, and if you go too fast with the paint and you mess up, you can clean it up, but it's a little hard. And with that, I'm making a mess. It's not my night. For those of you that are not familiar or haven't taken any of my classes, I usually have to paint at night while my children are asleep because little kids and paint just do not mix. So, so lots of late nights. Oh, see, messed up my letter. Lots of late nights, and sometimes I am just plumb exhausted, and I am just not having a good night with this paint. I am making mistakes left and right, getting paint all over the place. So, see, even as a professional artist, I make whoopsies all the time. So that looks like my green was coming up. So I will kind of patch that up in a little bit. Let's see if I can try to do that now. And try to get some of that green color there. There we go. If you saw my Phthalo painting from last year, if you look really close, you can see some patchwork that I had to do for that, because I did some major whoopsies with that there last year. So see, fixable. Just be a bit more careful and you won't have to do fixes all the time. Get a little bit more green on that part there. There we go. All right. I think that's it for the whoopsies for now. And while I've got that color, I may come in here and just touch up in there where I went a little crazy. Okay, so wiping off my hand, and I'm just gonna do like I did with the other lettering. I think I want this lettering to be black so that it really stands out, but you could probably do white or yellow or brown or even the darkest green. Or heck, a combination of colors might be nice. And I'm just gonna come over only on the lettering, not my little place markers that I did. And I'm just gonna go over the lines. And I will show you at the end how to clean up any chalk marks that might be showing when you're done. And if you mess up a little bit, it's okay, because at least the letters I'm using, spooky letters, and it's okay if it's not perfect. So some artists, so typically you see artists painting on an easel. I just don't have one because my space, I'm gonna get a wall mounted one, but my space just at the moment is not conducive to having an easel, and it's easier to teach from overhead view. But you'll see people that work with easels. They have a wood bar or something to rest their arm on, so they don't do what I keep doing and dip their hand or their arm or something in the paint. So that's something you can keep in mind. A sheet of paper, a wooden bar, or something to protect your work if you are a klutz like me. There we go. And I'm being a little messy with this question mark because I want it to look kind of spooky also. All right, so I'm gonna bring out the heat gun here and dry my lettering so that I can just show you how to get rid of the chalk marks. Okay. Okay, so the chalk marks are just like with you know, fresh splatters of paint. You just use water and it just comes right off. See? If you happen to like the look of the chalk on there, like a little highlight or something, you can leave it. Just know that it does not last forever. It'll start flaking off. And there we have it. So what is the last step? We own it, right? We sign our John Hancock, right? All right, I'm gonna do it right on his belly and call it a night. All right, and here we have our good old Mr. Oogie Boogie. The big reveal. Ta-da!